Another week and another really big negative headline for Stadia, this time coming from Kotaku. All of it revolving around Stadia's closure of their first-party studios, and to be perfectly honest with you, I expect this to be the first of many follow-ups to come. To give you a quick breakdown of the situation, Kotaku has talked to 4 individual anonymous sources, all of which who claim to be knowledgeable about what was going on within Stadia Games and Entertainment as it was being shut down. Now I know some people are going to have their doubts about the anonymous sources because obviously they're anonymous, and to be honest, Kotaku isn't the site it used to be, but trust me, there's very good reason to believe what they're saying, and we'll talk about that a bit later. So what exactly is being shared right now? Well, it turns out Phil Harrison, the vice president of Stadia, actually had a meeting with the Stadia Games and Entertainment crew. This all happened a week prior to the closure of said studios. In that meeting, he stated that they were making great progress at building a diverse and talented team and establishing a strong lineup of Stadia exclusive games. As you can imagine, some employees probably weren't expecting to be out of a job a week later. And to make matters worse, in a Q&A session after the closure was announced, Phil Harrison stated that he was aware of the closure happening when he gave the progress report a week prior to it. While he did express his regrets for the statements he made, I really can't help but only sympathize with the employees here. There is more to the story and we will be going over it, but for now I think it's important we take a step back and just kind of take in what was said. Phil Harrison giving that positive report while being fully aware of the studio's closure in just a week is nothing but a bad move. I can't blame any employee for feeling jaded about that situation, and I really don't think that's up for debate here. All that being said, I don't necessarily think Phil Harrison is the one to put at full fault here. Chances are he wasn't the one to make the call to close down Stadia Games and Entertainment. More than likely, that decision came from way higher up. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say he's a great vice president. I definitely think there could have been better picks for that position, but I just don't think it's fair to put all the blame on him either. And in terms of the studio closure in the perspective of the video game industry, sadly, this is standard practice. Want a good example of this? Then look at Telltale. Employees were left stunned by the company's closure. Capcom Vancouver also had employees expressing their shock over on Twitter. Sadly, the industry kinda has a thing for telling their employees last minute as the public finds out along with them. But that doesn't really excuse what just happened here. When it comes to Google Stadia Games and Entertainment, many of the people that were hired were actually poached from other studios and well-established positions. There's a very good chance many of them went to work with Google expecting there to be at least a few years of secured pay. After all, Google should be fully aware of just how long and how much it should cost to actually make a game after all. Now, I happen to follow a lot of the employees they ended up hiring on Twitter, and I know for a fact that some of these people changed their life setup to go work at Stadia Games and Entertainment. Many of them moved across the country to fulfill these positions, and let me just say, I can't begin to imagine what's going through their heads right now. Imagine Typhoon Studios, they just released Journey to the Savage Planet, and it happened to be a pretty good game. Essentially, they were bought out by Google just to be shut down. This is more than likely going to lead to many employees being upset with Google's handling of the situation. Therefore, I do expect to see more anonymous sources pop out. Now, for those questioning the validity of these anonymous sources, well, I would have to point to Jade Raymond's retweet of the article. Alex Hutchins, who was also a part of Typhoon Studios before the buyout, replied to it by simply saying, haha. Simply put, they wouldn't be acknowledging it if there weren't some sort of truth to it. But now it's time we move on to the bigger picture at play here. And that's not to say that what's going on with the employees isn't a major deal, but speaking purely from a consumer's perspective, in the short term, this really won't have any sort of effect on you. Games headed for Stadia are still headed that way. And truth be told, we were probably a few years away from seeing a true AAA first-party exclusive. What I do think will affect the average consumer though, is some of the points that Phil Harrison was making during the Q&A session with staff. Apparently, it was specifically pointed out that Microsoft's buying of Bethesda software was one of the things that made Google decide to close its book on original game development. This is one of those things that stood out to me a lot in this article, because I'm not really sure how to take it. And that's because this can be taken one of two ways. A, Google just got one hell of a rude awakening, realizing just how much they actually have to invest to start competing with the bigger players in the game. Or B, they plan on making purchases and acquisitions of their own rather than building out first-party talent from the ground up. I've already seen some people alluding to that being the case, but if I'm being completely honest, I really don't see it being option B. I say this mainly because it doesn't seem like that's what they were alluding to when they were talking about the future of the platform on the blog post in which they talked about shutting down Stadia Games and Entertainment. Specifically, the line that states the following really stands out. In 2021, we're expanding our efforts to help game developers and publishers take advantage of our platform technology and deliver games directly to their players. We see an important opportunity to work with partners seeking a gaming solution all built on Stadia's advanced technical infrastructure and platform tools. We believe this is the best path to building Stadia into a long-term, sustainable business that helps grow the industry. That to me reads much more like they're interested in working with developers and publishers rather than acquiring them. Now, that's not to say that they won't consider doing something like this in the far future, but in the short term, I just don't see it being a possibility. In which case, yeah, I'm trying to say that I do think it's option A. Microsoft's power play of acquiring Bethesda is pretty unheard of, and I think it was intentionally done to really put the industry on notice that they're going all in on gaming. I think someone higher up at Google did the numbers and realized that even if they make 4 games from their first-party studios in 2 to 3 years from now, they would still be way behind everyone else. Realistically speaking, in that same 2 to 3 year time frame, there's a very good chance that both Sony and Microsoft would have released 10 exclusives in the time that it took Stadia to release 2 or 3. Many of those IPs being well recognized and pretty much guaranteed sellers, something that Google Stadia wouldn't have had with their first-party lineup. And when you start breaking it down like that, would it have been worth it to Google to actually fund the first-party studios, acquire new studios, and make sure those third-party deals for key multi-platform titles were made? Financially speaking, probably not. Even though I would have loved to see first-party studios and cloud-native gaming directly from Google, the truth is that right now the Stadia user base is still struggling to even attract multi-platform titles without having to be paid to do so. And in the right here and right now, I do think it's much more important for Stadia as a service to actually secure the multi-platform titles that everyone knows and plays. Whether that ends up happening and actually paying off, we probably won't know for quite some time. As I've stated before, any games that you're seeing arrive this year have probably already been inked in contracts for some time now. The impact of this switch in focus is probably still about a year away, and that's when it'll be very interesting to see what direction Stadia takes. Either way, before I wrap everything up, I do want to make it clear that this is just my opinion on what's going on. If you want to share yours, I would absolutely love to hear it down in the comment section below. Your opinion is just as valid as mine, and at the end of the day, we probably won't be finding out about what actually went on higher up at Google to cause this shutdown to happen. It'll be interesting to see whether or not this ends up paying off for Stadia as a platform in the long run. Either way, that's all I really have to say on the topic. If you enjoyed the video or found it helpful at all, be sure to hit that like button as it really does help the channel out. And if you're wanting more content like this, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell as well. Today's end of video question is going to be asking you how you see Google Stadia itself. Is it your main way of playing? Is it an addition to how you play? Or has the recent bad news affected your view of the platform in general? Let me know down in the comment section below. I would love to hear your thoughts. As always, thank you for watching the video. This has been Generation Stadia, giving you that daily dose of everything and anything cloud gaming related. The Gen S community is over 8,200 strong and growing by the day, and until next time, I'll catch you in the clouds.